Hey guys, Phil Baumhart here. So for today's video, I've been commissioned to make another sword. This one's going to be a Viking sword. I've got another leaf spring here. This one has been salvaged from an accident. You can see it's kind of bent up and it's got some chips taken out of it. I think this is already a pretty good size for a standard Viking sword. So I don't know exactly what type of hilt I'm going to make, but the blades are all very similar. So we're going to be going for a double-edged with a deep fuller and kind of a spatulate point, you know, a very a steeper rounded point. It'll still have a point, but it's not as acute as like a long sword. It's also going to have a single-handed grip and a short guard. Just kind of all the things that are typical for a Viking Age sword. So the customer isn't looking for anything in particular, just something that's historically accurate that fits the moniker of a Viking sword. So I get to have a little more free reign with this one, so it should be fun. We got a couple of good chips out of here. I'm still going to be able to get the length that I'm looking for because the Viking swords are usually about 75 to 80 centimeters roughly, so you know, maybe about 30 to 28 inches long in the blade is what we're looking at. So we should have plenty of blade material here. So I think what I'm going to do is going to have this end be the tang, so I can trim this off and make this into a narrow tang easy enough, and that'll give me more than enough room there. And then so up here I think I'll just lop it off right at this break so we don't have any worry of stress fractures there. Lop it off right there and start forging out the point. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with the point there. Didn't get a fish mouth or nothing, so we kept it relatively uniform as far as the thickness is concerned. We'll just go ahead and start putting in edge bevels, drawing out the edges, and I'll leave the center pretty much untouched because I'm going to go back with the grinder and grind out the fuller, which that'll stop probably right in about there. So I think I'm going to grab the square 4-pounder and start doing the bevels. So after just about every heat, I'm coming back to the vise here and just trying to keep it straight. So far it seems to be working out pretty good, and they just seem to be aligned fairly well. Okay, so here's where we're at with the sword. I've got the kind of edges ground true and cleaned up the shoulder and tang a little bit. Got it straightened out pretty good, and started grinding in the fuller. So I'm using my new grinder wheel here. This is a 10-inch contact wheel, and one of the great things with this broad beck grinder is that it's tilting, so I can tilt it down like this. And this configuration here is what I found has worked best for me for grinding in the fuller. So with the Viking swords, they had really broad, shallow fullers, just like this. This is, you know, barely a fuller. You know, this is super shallow. This is already pretty historically accurate. You know, on some of the examples I've looked at, historic finds, you know, sometimes the fuller is, you know, just barely perceptible. So I'm going to do a bit more in here, but this is just sort of proof of concept for me, just to figure out what it was I needed to do before I turned the camera on. So a couple of points I wanted to make with Viking blades is the fuller should extend into the tang. So when the guard is on there, the fuller goes straight down past the guard, so just like that. That's historic. The fuller was actually into the tang a lot of times, sometimes even past the guard. You can see it. You can see the fuller is ground, and then it also kind of tapers out up here at the point. So there's not a hard stop here, and there's certainly not a hard stop right here before the guard. So that's what I'm going to do with this side now, and I'll kind of show you how I've been doing that. But this is my first time doing this kind of thing, so for me at least, it's pretty exciting. So a little tedious, but this is shaping up nicely. Okay, so I got it cleaned up with a wire wheel here, so you can kind of see that we've already got you know, a little bit of a edge bevel formed just from the hammering, and so that kind of leaves us a track right here where the fuller is going to go in. And that's what it looks like when the fuller is in. So this is you know, still pretty rough. It's kind of an older belt, so I'll have to try to clean it up and deepen it up a bit. But I'm happy with the way it's looking. Okay, so here's what our sword blade is looking like. So far so good. I've got it fairly thin, not too thin. This edge is definitely a lot thinner. So this is all 36 grit belt. I'll probably go on to 60 there and finish that up. Kind of try to even it all up and smooth it up. But before I get too far on this, I'm going to start working on the guard and pommel. And so for that I've got this big old chunk of a leaf spring that I found. This thing is massive, so I cleaned up this front edge here where it was broken off. So a lot of Viking sword guards are pretty short and squat comparatively. So right now it's a little bit, probably a little bit too short. But what I'm going to do is cut this off with the angle grinder. I'll probably draw it out just a little bit, and then I'll try to cut through it. Hot cut through it with a chisel and get it fitted up here. I'm probably gonna have to clean up these shoulders a little bit here. We'll get this cut down and get it in the forge. So I've got my two pieces of handle slab material chiseled out, and I've purposely cut these long. Viking grips were actually fairly short, usually about 4 to 4.5 inches long. This one will probably be a little bit longer than that, just for the kind of modern comfort that we're used to on our sword grips. But I'd like to keep this, you know, fairly historically accurate. So I'm just going to put a bit of super glue on here and just glue these two sides together so that I can shape these down evenly. That's just the easiest way. So I'm going to end up doing a leather wrap on the grip, so I'm not really worried about having these come apart or anything like that. But I'm not going to do any stain or finish to these either. I just want these glued together so it's easier to work with. So these are going to be shaped down, trimmed down. I've got the guard fit up, squared up to the shoulders there. So again, the tang is extra long, but something like that is what we're looking at. So here's what I want the pommel to look like, stacked like this. This is how they were done historically. So I've got the holes drilled out here that I'll put pins through, so I just need to drill out the corresponding holes on this one as well. So in an attempt to line it up, we're going to put it in the drill press vise here. Line this up as best we can. Okay, so that actually lines up pretty darn good. That's about as good as could be expected. I'm going to chamfer this upper guard here and get it to kind of match nicely with the pommel. But I want to pin it in place first before I do that. So this actually holds really pretty well, even just with the pin in there, not you know, affixed or glued or anything like that. So we'll drill out the second hole. I'll cut this pin down just to leave it as a marker. I want to make sure I leave enough open so that I can actually get it out again. But yeah, we're in good shape. So as always, this is a tough procedure to film. So I was trying to just get up to the you know, temperature without overheating it in places, because that causes it to warp and bend even before you quench it. So I've got it in my straightening device here. So we'll see how it came out. Okay, so here's how the sword blade is kind of looking. That technique with the spraying the water bottle I got from a Old Hickory Forge video, so that seemed to be an improvement on my previous method where it was just the torch, and the colors would always bleed over too much and contaminate the edge. So this is probably going to be a better heat treatment. It's also a little bit different edge geometry, thinner in the center and thicker on the edge. So this seemed to have worked out pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to do some engravings on the sword guard here because the customer asked for some, Nordic inspired designs. This is a knot pattern that I found on a Gotland runestone in Sweden, and so I've got just with the Dremel, I put it on the other side here. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this side. Well, these kind of patterns engraved on the sword guards and pommels was not necessarily common. There are quite a few examples where they have decorations very similar to this, so I'm comfortable doing this as like a historically accurate example. These would have been filled in with some sort of inlay, usually like silver, possibly gold or copper. But in my case, I'm just going to cheat, use a Dremel, engrave it in, and then I'm going to blue everything so that the indents will be darker, and then the whole sword will have kind of a nice patina. Okay, so let it sit and rust up, so I'm going to spray it down with some Windex, which is supposed to neutralize the acidic effects of the cold blue solution. Alright, so that's what it looks like. I really kind of wanted the engraving to be darker than the surrounding metal, but I like kind of the patina that the bluing does, so that's all well and good. So I think what I'm going to try to do is hit this again with the cold blue and just see if I can get a little bit darker in the engraving. Okay, so I've got the handle wrapped in leather. I whited it down, sewed it up, so now it's going to kind of shrink up around the leather and give it a nice tight fit. Hopefully it doesn't shrink up too much, but we'll see. Got a shim in the blade here on the other side. You can't really see it, but the hilt is solid, so I'm just going to go ahead and epoxy this all up. At least just epoxy the handle to the tang, and then I'll do the second half of the hilt in a second step. Okay, so for the final step of the process here, we're going to fix the pommel cap to the top of the hilt here. And so I've got I dished out the little piece right here so that the nub of the tang sticking out will fit on there, and we'll have our brass pin. So I'm going to put a little bit of JB weld on the inside of these holes here, and in these holes as well, just for extra security, and then it'll be all set. the finished Viking sword. I'm really happy with the way this one came out. This is really a challenge for me to make. Maybe not as much as I was initially fearing, but I'm really happy with the results. It's always kind of been a dream of mine to make this type of sword, so I always knew I'd be making one, and I plan on making quite a few more before I'm gone. But you know, this kind of custom build was a great excuse to give it a shot. So performed really well as expected. This thing slices and hacks really well. It's got a lot of weight behind it. Obviously, the point of balance is going to be pretty far forward, so right about here, which is right where they're supposed to be. So it is heavy to swing around, but once it gets going, it just cuts with tremendous power. And so I was trying to make this thing as historically accurate as possible. So obviously, you know, try to make it you know, 100% historically accurate is going to be impossible. But you know, I gave it my best shot. So the kind of fairly straight with a gradual taper. That's how the Viking blades were, with the very shallow fuller. So for just the technology that I have and my ability, doing a broad shallow fuller like this with that 10-inch contact wheel worked out really well. So it was my first time doing something like that. Came out fairly neat. Again, not perfect, but first time attempting that. So actually really happy with the way that came out. So I've already done a book review on the Swords of the Viking Age by Ian Pierce, and that was a great resource for this build. So if you're looking for a historic reference point, that's a great place to start. But in the Viking Age, this was referred to as the lower guard because the sword was looked at in kind of a sheathed position. So lower guard, upper guard, and this would be the pommel cap. So the way I constructed this with the tang going through the upper guard, and then the tang, or then the pommel being seated with two pins, that's historically accurate. That's how the Viking Age swords would have been made. The grips were also very short. This is a 4-inch grip, which is actually on the longer side of Viking Age swords. A lot of them were about 3.5 inches to 3.3 inches even, which is pretty short, but honestly I think I could have gotten away with that. So if I take the glove off here, you can see there's actually going to be some room. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with a short grip like that. And there's some theories about how they could have fought kind of a different grip on the pommel. Something like this is how some people speculate that they might have been wielded. Not 100% sold on that theory, but my sword is a little bit bigger and heavier than the historic blades. So this is kind of like a classic type H of sword and hilt construction, sort of a Norwegian style. My blade is 32 inches long. There, in the Swords of the Viking Age book, there's only one sword that's got a blade that long, and all the other ones are quite a bit shorter. And the overall length is also quite a bit longer. So this is at 39 inches. So a lot of the other swords were about 36 inches overall. So this is just a little bit bigger and consequently heavier than the historic swords. I think a little bit broader as well from some of the historic ones that I've seen in museums. But you know, not impossibly big. You know, one of my pet peeves is the grips being too long on replica Viking swords. So I feel like you know, proportion-wise, the sword is all in proportion, so I'm happy about that. So the engraving on the guard here, this is from a rune stone, a picture stone in Sweden. So this is a specific Viking design, you know. So it repeats itself, but it's sort of an asymmetrical design. So asymmetrical knotwork, which is kind of neat to see. So also per the customer's request, I also put a engraving on the fuller here. This is going to be a transliteration of the customer's name, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Runes are tough. It's hard to get those 100% accurate. I'm not an expert on it by any means, but these are younger Futhark long twig runes, so I was trying to be accurate to the Viking Age, and they don't have every letter in the alphabet. So, and it's not a translation of his name, it's just a transliteration. Put his name into code, so just a little extra there. And then I also inscribed kind of a wolf emblem on here. This is supposed to be a reference to Fenrir. So I've got a circle there. That's the sun. That's Fenrir eating the sun. So a reference to Ragnarok. So again, that was something that the customer asked for specifically, kind of a tie-in to Fenrir somehow. So this kind of wolf design I got from the Swords of the Viking Age book of a 11th century sword, so very end of the Viking Age, I suppose you could say. But again, that all ties back into the history. So, and then the copper on here, so I got the leather wrapping. The leather kind of shrunk up a little bit to expose the wood core of the grip there. So I put the copper wrappings to kind of hide that, and also add a little bit extra decoration. And that's you know, kind of having these braided wire. Usually they'd have gold, but also brass and copper they could use, or silver. That's historically accurate, and you'll see that on some different finds. But yeah, again, really happy with the way this came out. This was you know, another challenging build, but I'm thrilled with the way it came out. So appreciate you guys coming along for the ride and watching me build this. So here's a look at the scabbard that I made for it. So this is another wood core scabbard with a leather wrap. I just kept it simple. I didn't do anything with the shape. So this is going to be the back of the scabbard. So we've got the seam there, and I've got this additional piece right here. This is kind of inspired by the historic fitting methods as far as a suspension system. So this is just simple leather to get 2 loops. You can thread your belt through there and then hang it baldric style cross draw. So draw is easy. It's got a good sound when it comes out. I'm really happy about that. So that was kind of neat. But yeah, looks and fits good. You know, nice symmetry. So really happy with how this all came out. Love that sound. That's just geeking out about that. So as always, thank you so much for the support. Thanks for watching, and until next time, be more Viking.